They were meant to live forever, wrapped, sealed, and hidden from time. Across deserts, mountains, and tombs, the dead still lie waiting, whispering stories of faith, power, and science far ahead of their age. From the golden sands of Egypt to the hidden tombs of China, and even to the frozen monks of the East, humanity has always sought to preserve what must fade. This is the story of the mystery of the mummies, and the secrets the dead still guard. To uncover their truth, we journey back to the cradle of preservation, ancient Egypt, where death was not an end, but a beginning.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, your essential shortcut to understanding the complex stories buried beneath the headlines. Today, we are undertaking, well, a truly monumental task: decoding the archive of mummies. If you're like most people, you immediately picture Egypt pharaohs, pyramids,
Right, the classic image.
But our sources reveal that this human quest for eternal life through physical preservation, it's actually a sprawling global phenomenon.
Absolutely. We're talking way beyond Egypt.
We're going from the dry deserts of the Nile all the way to humid tombs in China, the frozen Andes, even the deep spirituality of Siberian Russia.
That's right. And these aren't just, spooky museum exhibits. They are incredibly fragile physical archives, like frozen moments in time.
So when we analyze them, what are we really seeing?
Well, we see the entire spectrum of preservation techniques. Sometimes it's pure environmental luck, maybe a body just dried naturally because of extreme cold or salt.
Okay.
But then you get these astonishingly complex artificial processes, things developed through centuries, probably millennia of trial and error.
So our mission today is really to extract the knowledge from these different finds, compare the methods, the beliefs behind them.
Exactly. And explore how modern science is pulling secrets out of bodies that are thousands of years old. It's quite incredible what they can do now.
And as we dig into this material, we encounter claims that, frankly, challenge fundamental biological laws.
Oh, definitely.
We have records in these archives of bodies deceased for a century, yet described as soft, elastic, almost like they're just sleeping deeply.
Yeah, those claims are highly controversial, but they're there in the sources.
It forces us to confront a startling idea.
Yeah.
Are we dealing with cases where the scientific boundary between death and life is perhaps genuinely blurred? It sounds like science fiction.
Well, it certainly pushes the boundaries of what we think we know. So let's unpack this vast topic. Where better to start than the culture that really defined the standard? Ancient Egypt.
Okay, ancient Egypt. The core driver, as you said, was this belief that life continued after death. But that continuation depended entirely on one thing: preserving the physical body.
Exactly. No body, no afterlife. That was the basic premise.
Interestingly, though, this super sophisticated, ritualized practice, it didn't start in some temple laboratory, right? It started with the climate itself.
Precisely. Early Egyptian burials were pretty simple affairs, just shallow pits dug at the edge of the desert.
So just in the sand.
Yeah. And the combination of that intense dryness, the constant heat, and crucially, the high salt content of the sand, it just naturally dehydrated the bodies.
Before decay could really take hold.
Right. It stopped decomposition in its tracks. It was natural mummification, basically an environmental accident.
And then over the next couple thousand years, they just perfected it.
They codified it. They optimized that natural process into the complex 70-day ritual we now associate with the pharaohs.
And the level and detail they achieved is, well, it's just staggering. The procedure for someone important, like a pharaoh, it was managed by the best embalmers.
Oh yeah, these guys were masters. They understood microbiology in practice, even if they didn't have the vocabulary for it.
So what was the first step? You've got the body.
Right. First, critical step, remove anything that would promote putrefaction, decay.
Makes sense.
They'd start by washing the body, but the main concern was the internal organs: stomach, intestines, liver, lungs. Those had to go.
Why those specifically?
Because the bacteria within the gut are the primary engines of decay. So they'd pull them out through small incisions.
But they left the heart, didn't they?
Yes, usually. They believed the heart was the seat of intelligence, emotion, essential for the final judgment in the afterlife.
And the brain?
The brain, they considered pretty useless, actually, often removed it quite crudely through the nose using hooks, kind of scrambling it first.
Okay, so organs out, cavities cleaned, Then what? Dehydration.
Exactly. This is where natron salt comes in. It's a naturally occurring mix, mostly sodium carbonate and bicarbonate. Basically a powerful desiccant.
Like those little silica gel packets, but on a massive scale.
Kind of, yeah. The body would be packed completely covered in huge quantities of this dry natron salt for about 40 days.
40 days? Wow.
Until pretty much every last molecule of moisture was drawn out of the tissues.
So after that, the body must have been, what, hard? Brittle?
Rigid, light, and very dry. Then they'd meticulously treat it with oils, spices, things like frankincense and myrrh.
Why the oils?
To restore some suppleness to the skin, prevent it from cracking, make it look a bit more lifelike, maybe, and smell better, probably.
And then comes the wrapping.
Finally, yes, the iconic wrapping. Hundreds of meters of fine linen strips, sometimes dipped in resin for extra protection and stiffness, creating that classic mummy shape.
And the preservation of someone like Ramses the Great. It just shows how well this 70-day blueprint worked.
Absolutely. He's a prime example. Thousands of years later, we can still study him.
What's fascinating here, though, is that this meticulous preparation wasn't just for humans, right? It extended to animals, too.
Oh, completely. Their commitment to preservation crossed species lines, especially for sacred animals.
The sources mention the ibis, for example. Sacred to Thoth, the god of wisdom.
That's right. And we're not talking a few here and there. We've found millions of ibis mummies. They were mass-produced as offerings.
Millions. How do we even know what's inside without unwrapping them all? That would destroy them.
Modern tech. CT scanning. It allows researchers to do virtual autopsies. You can see inside without ever touching the wrappings.
Okay, that's clever. And what did that non-destructive analysis reveal about these birds?
It gave us these amazing snapshots of their daily lives right before they were, well, sacrificed and mummified.
Like what?
In one ibis, researchers found its last meals still preserved. Specifically, an olive pit and various gizzard stones.
Gizzard stones?
Yeah, grit that birds swallow to help grind up food in their gizzards since they don't have teeth for chewing.
So even that tiny detail tells us something.
It tells us how carefully the bird was likely selected, maybe fed, right before being prepared as an offering. It's a concrete link between their world and their rituals.
And speaking of preparation for the afterlife, there's this anecdote that really captures their planning. The mummified steak.
Huh. Yes, the steak. You'd think they'd just focus on gold, jewels, amulets.
Right, the shiny stuff.
But they were intensely practical. They realized fresh meat would, well, rot and stink during the long funeral rites and the journey to the tomb.
So they pre-preserved the food, too.
Essentially, yes. They mummified prime cuts of beef, sometimes even placed inside their own miniature coffins.
Incredible. Just ensuring the deceased had, like, instant access to provisions in the afterlife.
Exactly. It shows mummification wasn't just about the body. It was about the whole package, the logistics of eternity as much as the liturgy.
These finds tell us so much about beliefs, diet, daily life. But there's one mummy, Nesi-Amun, who's helping modern science do something truly remarkable.
Ah, yes. Nesi-Amun, letting us hear a voice silent for 3 millennia.
Tell us about him. Who was he?
Nesi-Amun was a priest, also a temple administrator for the great god Amun-Re at Karnak. This was over 3,000 years ago.
And his voice was important.
Crucial. His duties involved chanting hymns, singing. His voice was absolutely central to his identity and his job.
So when he died, it wasn't just about his body being preserved.
No, he was specifically concerned with his voice, the spiritual power of communication. His final wish, actually inscribed on his sarcophagus, was to be found masharu.
Masharu, what does that mean?
It means justified a voice, or true a voice, at the final judgment of the dead. It was like the ultimate entry ticket to the afterlife for him. His voice needed to pass the test.
Wow. So he literally asked for his voice to endure.
He did. And modern researchers, particularly at the University of London and Leeds Hospital, saw this as like an explicit mandate from the past.
What did they find that made them think they could fulfill it?
They noticed that the soft tissues in Nesi-Amun's larynx and vocal tract were preserved to an astonishing degree, just incredibly well kept.
So they could see the structure.
Better than that. They used medical CT, scanning the same kind used in hospitals today, to capture the exact 3D dimensions of that entire vocal tract. The pharynx, the mouth cavity, even the tongue placement.
Okay, so they had a digital blueprint of his voice box, essentially. What then?
Then they took that super precise scan data and used 3D printing technology. They created an exact physical replica of his vocal apparatus.
Like a custom-made musical instrument.
That's a great analogy, tailored precisely to his ancient anatomy.
But wait, a vocal track needs a sound source, right? The vibration from the vocal cords. Nesi-Amun's would be long, dry, and shrunken.
Exactly. They couldn't vibrate naturally, so they solved that using technology developed by Professor David Howard, who actually works on helping people speak after they've had their larynx removed.
How does that work?
They used an artificial electronic larynx. It's a small device that generates a basic vibration, a buzzing sound. And they routed that sound through the 3D printed vocal tract.
And the result was?
The world's first sound generated by an ancient mummy's reconstructed vocal apparatus. A single, distinct vowel sound. Kind of like an A or ah.
That must have been an incredible moment. The sources say it was quite high-pitched, though.
It was. Analysis suggests the high pitch was likely a result of the very thing that preserved him, the dehydration.
Ah, shrinkage.
Exactly. The drying and shrinking of the soft tissue slightly altered the size and shape, the acoustics of the tract, pushing the resonant frequency higher.
But regardless of the exact pitch.
The significance is huge. They used modern forensic and medical tech to fulfill his specific, explicit last will inscribed thousands of years ago.
Ensuring his voice did resonate again, in a way.
In some form, yes. It's this profound demonstration of history and technology converging to grant an ancient wish. Quite moving, really.
Okay, so if Egypt represents meticulous drying, desiccation. Our next subject, Lady Day, represents something completely different, maybe even more successful.
Arguably, yes. We're pivoting thousands of miles east now to Hunan province in China. The year is 1972, right in the middle of the Cultural Revolution, actually.
And they discovered the tomb of Shinzui, Lady Dai.
That's her. Wife of the Marquis of Dai, lived during the Han Dynasty, died around the 2nd century BC, so about 2,200 years ago.
And her preservation is described as, well, world-class. The best.
It's truly in a league of its own. Many consider her the best preserved mummy globally. If you compare her to the Egyptian examples, hard, brittle, coated in resin.
Yeah.
Lady Di looked almost frighteningly fresh, like she died recently.
Frighteningly fresh. Okay, break that down. What does that mean in practical terms when they examined her?
It means when pathologists performed the autopsy, and yes, they did a full autopsy, they found her skin was still elastic, soft to the touch.
No way. After 2,200 years.
Yes. Her muscles still had tone, her joints were actually movable, and crucially, she still retained liquid blood.
We found blood.
Enough liquid blood in her veins to determine her blood type, type A.
That's unbelievable. It allowed for an unparalleled reconstruction of her life then, and how she died.
Absolutely. Her grave goods painted this picture of utter indulgence, extreme luxury.
What kind of stuff?
Oh, she loved music, had tons of silk clothing, cosmetics, clearly had a passion for rich, expensive food. The tomb was packed with evidence of it.
And this lifestyle, sadly, connected directly to her death.
It did. Pathologists determined she died from acute cardiac issues, basically a heart attack, likely brought on or exacerbated by extreme obesity.
And there was something found in her stomach.
Get this, 138 whole, hard-to-digest melon seeds, suggesting she died very shortly after eating a large, rich meal that her body just couldn't handle.
Wow, a fatal Last Supper. The tomb also had what, food for the afterlife?
Loads of it. 30 baskets of preserved food, detailed recipes. She was meant to continue her luxurious lifestyle.
Okay, but this brings us to the big technical question. Unlike in Egypt, her internal organs were not removed.
Correct. That's a key difference.
So how on earth was decomposition prevented without removing the gut bacteria and everything?
The secret seems to lie in the engineering of her tomb. It functioned as a perfect sealed time capsule.
How is it built?
She was placed inside 4 nested coffins, heavy, lacquer-coated wood. These weren't just strong. They were essentially waterproof and airtight.
4 layers of coffin.
4 layers, and this entire structure was then buried deep underground. But first, it was encased in a massive layer of charcoal.
Charcoal for absorbing moisture.
Exactly. And then the whole thing was sealed with a thick layer of white clay, and finally, a 15-meter-high earthen mound piled on top.
So completely isolated from the environment. No air, no water getting in.
Pretty much. But there was one more crucial factor, the mystery fluid.
Ah, right. She was found immersed in liquid.
Yes. Inside the innermost coffin, Lady Day was lying in about 80 liters of a strange, reddish liquid. This fluid is the real focal point of the Chinese preservation mystery.
Did they analyze it? What was in it?
They did. Analysis confirmed it contained 2 substances we know are relevant. Cinnabar, which is mercury sulfide, and traces of mercury itself.
And those would kill bacteria.
Incredibly effective, broad-spectrum bacterial inhibitors. It's highly probable they just killed off any ambient bacteria inside the coffin, preventing the internal decay that should have happened very quickly.
Okay, that makes sense for stopping decomposition. But the sources highlight something still unexplained.
That's the fascinating part. Even with modern biochemistry, about 4% of that reddish liquid remains completely unidentified. We still don't know what it is.
4% doesn't sound like much, but
But it could be the key. This tiny fraction might hold the secret to truly flawless, long-term preservation. Could it be some lost ancient preservative or, as some speculate, maybe even a component of that legendary elixir of eternal life Chinese emperors were always searching for?
it really speaks volumes about the chemical knowledge they must have had back then, 2,200 years ago.
It really does. And it wasn't just her tomb. Her son's tomb, found nearby, contained a whole library of previously lost medical and astronomical texts on silk, suggesting this region was a real hub of advanced, maybe even radical scientific thought during the Han Dynasty.
Makes you wonder what else is still buried out there.
Okay, let's shift gears dramatically. We're moving from sophisticated ancient engineering to, well, pure speculation and intense controversy.
Where are we heading now?
To the high deserts of the Peruvian Andes near those famous Nazca geoglyphs, the giant lines carved into the desert floor.
Ah, okay. And this is the location of the find known as the White Nazca Mummies.
That's them. And controversial is putting it mildly.
This is where things get really bizarre, right? The descriptions alone, they sound like something out of a movie.
Pretty much. You have these figures that look sort of human-like, but they have only 3 long fingers on each hand and 3 long toes on each foot.
3 fingers and toes. Okay.
Plus, elongated skulls, but apparently not from artificial binding like some other cultures practiced. Scaly, almost reptilian-like skin is also reported. No visible ears, tiny mouths.
Whoa. Okay, I can see why the alien hypothesis exploded the moment these were revealed.
It was immediate, especially given the location near the Nazca lines, which UFO enthusiasts have linked to extraterrestrials for decades. Finding these figures nearby, for many it cemented that theory, proof of alien visitation.
Who found them and where?
They were reportedly discovered by a local man, Leandro Sarmiento, sometimes described as a tomb robber or huaquero, in a concealed cave high up in the mountains.
Not exactly a formal archaeological dig then.
No, definitely not. They were supposedly found just resting in simple burial niches, covered in the sort of light powder.
Okay, that powder, was it analyzed? Did it tell us anything?
It did. Initially mysterious, that powder turned out to be our first, maybe only, solid scientific link back to other mummification practices. The University of Ica analyzed it.
Okay.
It was identified as fossilized algae, basically diatomaceous earth.
Diatomaceous earth. Isn't that used in filters and pesticides?
Exactly. It's a highly effective desiccant. It absorbs moisture, and it's also anti-parasitic. Very similar in function to the natron salt the Egyptians used.
So whatever these things are, the powder helped preserve them naturally in that dry cave.
That seems to be the case. It drew moisture out quickly, slowing decomposition. So we see that basic principle of drying at work again, regardless of the biology of the bodies themselves.
Right. But the bodies themselves seem to challenge all known anatomy. Were X-rays done? What about those elongated skulls?
Yes, X-rays were performed, and they reportedly showed the elongated skull wasn't deformed by binding. It was apparently a single fused bone structure, which would suggest that was the natural shape for these beings.
Okay, that's weird. What about inside? Any internal scans?
Also very strange findings reported. Internal analysis identified 3 oval shapes within the abdominal cavity of at least one figure.
Oval shapes? Like what?
When analyzed, these objects were said to contain petrified calcium, the main component of eggshells.
Eggshells. Inside the body.
That's the claim. And this detail, suggesting some kind of internal egg-laying structure, is what really fueled speculation about a reptilian or at least non-mammalian biology.
And then there were artifacts found with them. That confused things even more.
Right. A metal clasp made of a gold and copper alloy was found on one mummy's chest. The specific alloy composition is apparently consistent with materials used by the human Nazca culture around 2,000 years ago.
Okay, so that links them to the local human culture.
But some researchers who examined it noted its specific structure, maybe its metallic sheen, looked eerily like components used in modern microchips or electronics.
So ancient alloy, modern look. The ambiguity is just huge.
Immense. And that ambiguity is, like you said, catnip for sensationalists and conspiracy theorists.
Given all this strangeness, there has to be a strong counter-argument, right? A skeptical explanation. What's the hoax theory?
The leading skeptical view comes from people like Mario Urbina, a fossil researcher at San Marco University in Lima. He argues pretty emphatically that these are fakes.
Fakes. How? They sound pretty complex.
He suggests they're highly elaborate composites, cleverly assembled constructions using various human and animal bones, maybe even llama bones, glued together, covered in some kind of plaster or coating, and then carefully wrapped or treated to look ancient and alien.
Okay, if they are fakes, why? What's the motivation to create such a bizarre, biologically puzzling composite? It seems like a lot of work.
Urbina and other skeptics point to economics, pure and simple. The Nazca lines already attract significant global tourism.
Right.
Discovering supposed Martian or alien mummies right nearby provides a complete irresistible narrative for tourists. See the alien landing strips, now see the aliens. It creates a whole new, potentially very lucrative market based on this fantasy.
So manufacturing history for tourist dollars.
That's the argument, creating a sort of complete package for the Nazca mystery industry.
So we have these two camps. Potentially unprecedented biological find versus elaborate hoax. The eco research team involved in the initial analysis, what's their position now? How do they suggest resolving this?
They emphasize, at least publicly, the need to treat the finds with open-ended scientific rigor, regardless of how they fit current worldviews. They argue the only way forward is through massive, transparent international research cooperation.
To get past the local controversy and accusations.
Exactly. They need unbiased global scrutiny. Advanced DNA testing by independent labs, multiple teams analyzing the materials and anatomy. Only then, they say, can the authenticity be definitively confirmed or denied.
So until that happens.
The final judgment on the three-fingered figures is very much still pending. It remains a fascinating, if deeply polarizing, mystery.
Okay, from the high drama of potentially fake aliens, let's move to the high discipline of spirituality. This next section explores mummification, not as something done to a body, but as a chosen, conscious, extreme spiritual path.
Right. And we start in Russia with a really monumental anomaly. Hambo Lama Itigelov.
Hambo Lama Itigelov. Where was he from?
He was a highly respected Buddhist spiritual leader from Buryatia, which is a region in Siberia near Lake Baikal. He died, or perhaps entered a state, in 1927.
Okay. And what was unusual about his death or burial?
Before he died, he gave specific instructions to his students. He asked to be buried sitting in the lotus position, meditating. And he told them to exhume him years later.
Exhume him? Why?
The reasons aren't entirely clear from the sources, perhaps to check his condition, perhaps as a spiritual testament. That exhumation finally happened much later in 2002, after the Soviet era ended, and religious practice was more open again.
And when they opened the coffin,
yeah,
what did they find? This is where it gets strange, right?
Extremely strange. His body, which had apparently just been lightly covered in salt within a wooden box, showed almost no decay. 75 years later.
No decay. But even Egyptian mummies are decayed, just very slowly.
Yeah.
What did no decay mean here?
Well, the reports are startling. The skin was said to be soft, still elastic. His joints were apparently still movable. This completely contradicts standard postmortem biology and, frankly, everything we know about mummification.
Soft and elastic after 75 years. That sounds impossible. How do people explain it?
Pilgrims and the local monastic community don't believe he's actually deceased in the way we understand it. They believe he's simply in a state of profound, deep meditation. Samadhi. A living llama.
The living llama.
Yes. And there are even claims, anecdotal reports, from witnesses who say they've seen slight movements, maybe his eyes opening slightly or his lips moving.
Okay, wait, let's bring in the science here. We just talked about Egypt, where the entire goal was desiccation, drying the body out to make it hard and rigid to stop microbes.
Exactly.
For a body to be 75 years old and still have soft, elastic tissue, that strongly suggests it's not preserved in the traditional sense, right? It would imply ongoing biological processes or just decomposition, turning into sludge eventually.
Medically speaking, yes. A truly preserved, mummified body, whether by salt, drying, or chemicals, becomes rigid. If it remains soft and pliable long-term, it generally means it is breaking down internally, unless some entirely unknown preservation mechanism is at work, or the reports are exaggerated.
So the scientific community is skeptical.
Highly skeptical of the claims of elasticity in movement. But here's the issue. The monks treat Itigelov as sacred. They forbid comprehensive, unbiased medical examination biopsies, detailed scans, that sort of thing.
So the anomaly is maintained purely by anecdotal evidence and spiritual faith, not scientific verification.
Pretty much. It remains a mystery we can't fully investigate because the source material itself, the body, is essentially inaccessible to rigorous science.
But Itigelov's path, this idea of achieving a preserved state through spiritual practice, connects to a real, documented historical practice, doesn't it? Sokushin Butsu in Japan.
Yes, exactly. So Kushin Butsu, which translates roughly to becoming a Buddha in this very body, or self-mummification.
This was a genuine practice.
Oh, yes. A radical Buddhist doctrine, mainly associated with the Shingon school. It dates back over 1,000 years, supposedly to a priest named Kukukai. Monks practiced this in parts of Japan, particularly in the north, until it was finally outlawed by the government in 1903.
And it wasn't like a quick thing, it was a process.
An incredibly long and agonizing process. Deliberate, systematic, taking place over years, designed to eliminate the sources of bodily decay while the monk was still alive. It typically involved 3 phases, each lasting 1,000 days.
3,000 days, almost 9 years. Okay, walk us through it. Phase 1.
Phase 1, the first 1,000 days. The monk would drastically restrict their diet. Only nuts, seeds, fruits, maybe some mosses gathered from the mountains.
Why that specific diet?
To strip the body of fat and muscle. Plus, they engaged in intense physical hardship, meditating under freezing waterfalls, extreme exposure, and significantly cut back on liquids.
What was the biological goal here?
Twofold. Starvation gets rid of the tissues that decay easily. Reducing liquids starts the dehydration process early. And crucially, the simple, sparse diet dramatically reduces the population of bacteria in the gut, the main drivers of internal putrefaction after death.
So they were trying to create a lean, dry, internally clean vessel.
Okay.
Phase 2, another 1,000 days.
Yes. Phase 2 got even more extreme. The diet shifted primarily to things like pine bark, roots, maybe some pine needles, driving the body into severe emaciation.
Just bark and roots. That sounds barely survivable.
Barely. And then came the really crucial and dangerous step. They started drinking a special tea made from the sap of the urushi tree.
Urushi? Isn't that the tree used to make Japanese lacquer? That stuff is toxic.
Highly toxic. Drinking it induces severe nausea, vomiting, rapid loss of remaining body fluids, further accelerating the drying process.
Well, why poison themselves?
It served a vital post-mortem purpose. The toxins would permeate the monk's remaining tissues. So after death, the poison acted as a powerful chemical preservative, deterring maggots, insects, microbes, anything that would normally consume the corpse. They were literally embalming themselves from the inside out while still alive.
The sheer willpower involved is just mind-boggling. And then the final phase, phase 3.
The final 1,000 days, or however long it took, the monk, now skeletal and full of toxins, would be sealed inside a tiny underground stone group. Barely enough room to sit in the lotus position.
Sealed in alive.
Almost. They'd have a small bamboo tube for air and a bell. Once a day, they would ring the bell to signal they were still alive, still meditating.
And when the bell stopped?
When the bell stopped ringing, the air tube was removed, and the tomb was sealed completely for the final 1,000 days. After that period, the tomb would be open to see if the self-mummification was successful.
Medically speaking, if this incredibly harsh process did succeed, what was the result? What state was the body in?
It often did result in successful mummification, achieved purely through self-inflicted starvation, dehydration, and poisoning. You can see some of these Sokushinbutsu monks in temples in Japan today.
But what condition are they in? Are they soft and elastic like Itigelov is claimed to be?
Absolutely not. And this is the key scientific point. The bodies resulting from genuine Sokushinbutsu are invariably hard, rigid, shrunken, desiccated, and completely stiff, like leather or wood.
So the known outcome of self-mummification directly contradicts the claims made about Itigelov.
Correct. The extreme lack of moisture, the very thing that preserves them, ensures rigidity. It proves that whatever's going on with Itigelov, if the reports are accurate, it's a profound spiritual anomaly or something else entirely. It's not the scientifically understood outcome of this kind of extreme self-mummification practice.
That intense spiritual rigor, the profound respect involved in Sokushinbutsu, really stands in stark contrast to where we go next. We have to talk about the other extreme, the pendulum swing that happened, especially in 19th century Europe.
Yeah, an age defined by, frankly, profound disrespect and the bizarre commodification of the dead.
Well, it ties into Egyptomania, right? That craze that swept Europe.
Absolutely. It led to the mass import of countless Egyptian mummies, and often they weren't treated as sacred human remains at all, more like weird souvenirs or curiosities.
Which resulted in this macabre social trend the sources call mummy parties. That sounds completely unbelievable.
It does, but it was real. A disturbingly popular pastime in aristocratic circles, particularly in Britain and France.
What exactly happened at these parties?
People would gather, often in grand ballrooms or drawing rooms, for the specific purpose of watching a newly acquired mummy be publicly unwrapped.
Just unwrapped for entertainment.
For entertainment, yes. And also for the thrill of discovery, guests would search the layers of bandages for hidden amulets, jewelry, or maybe interesting inscriptions. It was a morbid demonstration of wealth, worldliness, and a thirst for the exotic.
The sources even mentioned royalty getting involved.
Yes, Prince Friedrich Karl of the Hohenzollerns, part of the Prussian royal family, was apparently gifted the mummy of a young woman who died 2,500 years ago during a trip to Egypt. And what did he do? Had her unwrapped back home as a spectacle for his guests.
Just incredible disregard. And this disrespect went beyond just parties, didn't it? It actually permeated medicine and commerce.
Oh, absolutely. For centuries, believe it or not, powdered mummy was considered a legitimate medical commodity.
Powdered mummy, as in ground-up human remains.
Literally. Until as late as 1936, the major pharmaceutical company Merck, based in Germany, listed Mumia vera aegyptica, genuine Egyptian mummy, in its catalog.
Merck.
The drug company.
The very same. And it wasn't cheap. The sources mention a price of 12 gold marks per kilogram at one point, which was a significant sum.
What was it supposed to cure? Why would anyone ingest that?
It was marketed as a kind of cure-all, an aphrodisiac, good for bruises, headaches, epilepsy, coughs, you name it. People would apply it externally as a paste or salve or, yes, swallow the powder.
That's just deeply disturbing. Even understanding historical context ground up people as medicine.
Well, it's crucial to remember that using human and animal substances was actually quite standard in historic pharmacopoeia across the world for a very long time.
Like what else?
Oh, things like human fat, bones, blood, even brain matter were used. In Europe, executioners actually had a side business selling body parts from the condemned because there was a genuine high-paying market for these components for supposed medicinal use. Okay, so it was part of a broader, albeit gruesome, tradition. But if people were swallowing this mummy powder, was there any active ingredient, anything that might have actually provided some benefit, even perceived?
Funnily enough, yes, potentially. But the therapeutic effects likely didn't come from the human tissue itself. They probably came from the other materials used in the embalming process.
Ah, like the resins and spices.
Exactly. The body cavities were often packed with things like anti-inflammatory frankincense, myrrh, and natural asphalt, or bitumen pitch.
Asphalt, like road tar.
A natural form of it, yes. And asphalt is actually still used today as a traditional medicine in some places, like Mongolia, for certain ailments. So it was likely the residue of these resins and the asphalt in the powder, not the ground-up flesh itself, that provided any supposed medicinal properties people experienced.
Fascinating. So this huge demand for mumia eventually led to shortages and then counterfeiting.
Widespread counterfeiting. Real Egyptian mummies became harder to get. So fakes were made, sometimes using recently deceased indigents or even animal parts. Mummies were also used for other things ground up to make a pigment called mummy brown, used by artists, and even reportedly used to make wrapping paper in the U.S. at one point.
Unbelievable. Which brings us neatly to our final case study, a fantastic example of modern forensics uncovering a very modern mummy hoax. The Deifolz case in Germany.
Yes, the attic mummy. This story broke in July 2013 in Deifolz, a town in Lower Saxony.
What happened?
A 10-year-old boy found a dusty, forgotten wooden sarcophagus in the attic of his recently deceased grandparents' house. Inside, what looked like a mummy.
Just found it in the attic.
Just found it in the attic. The initial assumption was maybe the boy's grandfather, who had reportedly visited North Africa in the 1950s, had brought back a genuine, albeit probably illegal, ancient souvenir. The boy's father was a dentist, adding a layer of respectability.
But then the news got out.
And it exploded. International news? The Egyptian embassy in Berlin got involved, demanding the mummy's return. The local prosecutor's office had to step in.
Why the prosecutor?
They needed to rule out the possibility of a recent crime. Could this be a murder victim hidden away? Especially since the outer wrappings look relatively modern. So they brought in Germany's top forensic pathologist, Professor Klaus Puschel from Hamburg.
The expert. What did the initial examination show? The x-rays.
The initial x-rays were highly provocative, very confusing. They confirmed the skull inside was real and human, but it looked like it had some kind of mysterious metal band across the forehead, a diadem.
Okay.
And even more dramatically, there appeared to be an arrowhead lodged deep in the left eye socket.
An arrowhead in the eye. Wow.
Puschel immediately drew parallels to Ötzi the Iceman, the famous alpine mummy killed by an arrow. Was this some ancient royal murder victim? The possibilities seemed terrifyingly real for a moment.
So they decided they had to do a full autopsy immediately.
Had to determine age, cause of death, everything. Puschel made the first cut into the wrappings, and the entire story just fell apart. It was a complete farce. The outermost layers of bandages were relatively new cloth, but beneath them, just layers of 1970s kitchen paper towels, crepe paper, and duct tape.
Duct tape. The diadem.
The duct tape formed the shiny diadem and the arrowhead and the eye socket, just the tip of a cheap plastic toy arrow.
So, a complete hoax.
Oh.
But the sources say the body beneath the wrappings wasn't just simple. It showed a surprising level of sophistication from whoever made it.
Absolutely. This wasn't just rags stuffed in a box. Beneath all the paper and tape, the body wasn't mummified human tissue at all. It was a cheap plastic toy skeleton, the kind you might see in a science classroom.
A plastic skeleton. But didn't the x-rays show a real skull?
Yes, the skull was real human bone, but the rest was plastic. And here's the clever part. The faker had coated the entire plastic skeleton with a thick layer of lead-based metallic gray paint.
Lead paint. Why on earth do that?
This is the crucial forensic clue that elevates it beyond a simple prank. The fabricator understood basic radiology. Lead is incredibly dense and completely blocks or obscures X-rays.
So the lead paint?
Prevented the X-rays from clearly showing the low density of the plastic underneath. It made the skeleton appear solid, dense, maybe even metallic or heavily mineralized on the initial scans, making it look potentially ancient and real, at least to a cursory examination.
That implies the faker had some knowledge of how x-rays work and deliberately tried to fool them.
Exactly. It confirms the person who built this fake mummy, probably decades earlier, had some radiological knowledge and specifically intended for the hoax to survive at least initial scientific scrutiny.
So the conclusion was, what, an old elaborate prank?
Yeah.
Or something else?
The thinking is, it was likely a very sophisticated prank, maybe put together decades ago, possibly even inspired by popular German crime shows. One source mentions a specific Tatort episode from 2010 called Curse of the Mummy. Or perhaps it was an attempt at some elaborate cover-up that just got forgotten in the attic. Ultimately, it was foiled by the very forensic science it tried to cleverly imitate. Hashtag outro. So from the incredible chemical engineering of the Han Dynasty in China to the almost unbelievable disrespect of the mummy parties, right down to the crude but clever trickery of the Diefolz hoax, the human relationship with the preserved body is just this endless source of curiosity, controversy, and sometimes just plain weirdness.
It really is. And what's striking is that the core principle of mummification, basically, stopping biological decay, it's still absolutely central to some of our most ambitious future plans.
You mean like cryosleep?
Exactly. Think about it. When space agencies or science fiction writers plan these centuries-long missions to distant stars, like Alpha Centauri, they're banking on suspending biological time.
Halting all decay and aging.
Right. And how do they envision doing it? Often by placing travelers in specialized pods, maybe filled with liquid, and cryogenically freezing them. It's essentially a highly complex, hopefully temporary, form of mummification.
Stopping all biological processes with the intention of successful reanimation hundreds of years later upon arrival. It really is the ultimate fusion of that ancient human desire for preservation and incredibly advanced future technology.
And while we're looking way ahead to the future, we also need to remember the deep past these finds connect us to. You mentioned earlier the earliest American find.
Ah, yes. The incredible 4,500-year-old bundled woman found at Aspero in Peru, part of the Corral culture, the Norte Chico civilization.
4,500 years old.
Yeah.
That predates Tutankhamun by a whole millennium.
It does, and her natural preservation, probably just from the arid environment, was good enough that modern 3D designers could digitally reconstruct her face, giving us a literal window into the look of someone from one of the earliest complex societies in the Americas, a civilization we're only just beginning to truly understand.
Seeing that face, it really brings home the humanity. Which leads us back to that final point about respect, doesn't it?
It has to. The ancient Egyptians, for all their complex processes, dedicated incredible effort to ensure their preserved dead remained hidden, protected, beautiful for eternity. They used masks, nested coffins, secure tombs. They never intended for human eyes to see the unwrapped body again. The goal was spiritual integrity, not scientific display.
So modern researchers who do need to access these archives to learn from them have a huge ethical responsibility.
Absolutely. We have to approach these human remains with the utmost dignity and ethical consideration, always mindful of the profound cultural context, and learning from the gross misuse and commodification of previous centuries.
It's a delicate balance between scientific curiosity and fundamental human respect.
It is. So let's end by circling back to Nesi-Amun, the Egyptian priest. Remember his most profound spiritual wish, that his voice, his masharu, should resonate after death.
And our technology, 3,000 years later, managed to fulfill that in some small way.
Exactly. So thinking about that and thinking about your own life, here's a final thought for you, the listener. If you could leave one enduring message, one piece of yourself, for a civilization millennia into the future, assuming they had the sophisticated technology to somehow unlock or reconstruct it, what would that message be? What part of you would you want to echo through eternity?